Hello, welcome everybody. I expect we'll have people joining here and trickling in a little bit. Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about patch management, not only just some of the things and challenges that you face when trying to address this within your environment, but also some of the tools that we have available to make that simpler for you. To start things off here, my name is Joel Walensky. I'm one of our account managers here at Recast. I live in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, and outside of work, I'm an avid mountain biker, love being in the outdoors here, and I get a nice balance with that because my other passions are definitely more of the technology space. I've been working in the software industry for the past 6 years, and I really enjoy my time helping out and working with customers, whether that's going through the different ways that we can help them with their environment or helping solve challenges, use things and increase efficiency, all of those fun things. Alongside me on the call today, I do have Marty Miller and Michelle Chen. They'll be assisting us with the chat and the Q&A. So speaking of those, before we begin here, we've got just a couple of housekeeping items. The On24 platform is a great place for you to not only find what we're talking about today, but some additional content. So you'll see within the On24 window there on the right, some additional content for you to access. And then you'll also find there the chat and the Q&A sections where we can help you out by answering your questions. I would highly encourage you, if you do have questions as we're going, to put them in there, and we'll be sure to address those either as we're going or at the end as we're wrapping up. Alrighty, with that, let's talk about our agenda today. So first things first, we're going to talk about the current state of patch management, just a little bit of an overview of what we're hearing from Recast side and what our other customers are experiencing. And then we're going to jump into how we can help you address that from our side. Specifically, we'll dive into the details of our application manager solution, not only just from a high level on what we're trying to address and how we're trying to work with you, but then also some of the specifics of the product and how it works. We'll jump into a demo and, of course, have an opportunity there for you to ask all sorts of questions, understand. The goal of this call today is to give you a just back to front view of how we're approaching third-party patching and some of the ways that we can help you out. Alrighty, so this might be a little redundant. I know that you guys are in the console day-to-day, the ones that are actually doing the patching, but our three pillars here of Recast are really where we see a lot of these same challenges when it comes to patching solutions. The first being automation. Obviously, if you're in the solution day-to-day, if you're in the console and you're manually updating your patches, not only is that time out of your day where you need to go and actually complete the packaging, verify the deployments, make sure that everything's good to go, but you also have to be monitoring to make sure that you're seeing when those new patches are available. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and automation here is one of the big ways that we can help you improve that process and make sure that you have a little bit more of a streamlined approach. Of course, that's going to lead to compliance. I'm sure all of you get asked questions about where things are at with not only security updates, but with third-party patching as well. If you're letting solutions do their own patching today, that's a nice, easy way to do things, but you are losing a lot of the ability for management there to make sure that you are actually getting those packages and that your end user are actually doing those updates to make sure that your environment's up to date. Take Google Chrome for a great example. We had quite a few zero-day updates in 2022. If the solution isn't actively grabbing those updates and the end user isn't actively letting it update, you're not going to be sure that you're getting those right away, and those are really important and critical to maintaining your security. The last piece here is insight, understanding where patches are at, being able to verify that you've got the latest and greatest versions. That goes along with the automation and compliance pieces as well. If you're the one that's in there doing it day to day, maybe you can say, okay, we've got this up to date, but it's a constant challenge. You're on a treadmill that's always moving faster and faster. And as your environment grows, it's harder and harder to keep up with that. So we wanted to give you some good ways to not only tackle the issues that you're facing with patch management, but also verify that those updates are going through. You have them out in the environment. You can see which devices have taken them. And if somebody has a question about where you're at, you can easily give those answers. Alrighty, let's talk about Recast here. We'll get into the patch management, but I did want to give everybody just a little bit of overview as well to how this fits into the puzzle of what we offer here. So at the core of what we do is still our systems management section. So Right-Click Tools Enterprise, that is, as I'm sure you all know, the core piece of it. Endpoint insights there, the additional reporting and data that we bring in with the Recast agent is part of that as well. We're seeing a lot of customers benefit from understanding maybe a little bit more of their assets that are out there, monitors, warranty status, or some additional reporting on security, whether that's BIOS settings, software compliance updates, or user installed applications as well. So there's a whole host of information there that we're able to provide to our customers. We do also offer a small piece that would offer right-click tool actions within the ServiceNow platform called Shift Left. So this is going to be more of the service desk team, so giving them more functionality so they're not going to be diving into the console constantly or needing some additional access there when in reality all they're doing is resetting a device or maybe accessing a BitLocker key. One of our recent additions that takes advantage of the Recast agent alongside the Recast management server is Privilege Manager. You can think of this as the next step beyond Lapse, where maybe some of your end users need additional self-serviceability for getting local admin rights. This takes the burden off of you and your team because they can actually go in and through the user account control, get a temporary license if they've been configured and you've given them permission to do so. So they can take that action with local admin rights. And then also on the back end, you can see everything that's happening. So you can verify if in case something goes wrong, who's been accessing what, what have they been doing with those rights? And we're not just giving them that blanket, all right, fine, go ahead. Here's your local admin rights. Finally here, we get into the last piece, which is the topic of today's call, Application Manager. Third-party patching has been something that we've been working on for quite a while. So this is a recent release for our Right-Click Tools customers, but something that's been in the works. And we have a lot of support going on behind the scenes here at Recast for. You can expect with not only Application Manager, but with the rest of our solutions as well, that the level of support you expect from Right-Click Tools and the all of the back-end work from our development teams to our customer success is all going to be there for all of these different products. They are going to be all easy to use, and our goal here is to just provide you with solutions that give you an easy way to manage your environment in all the different aspects. Let's talk some specifics about Application Manager. So this solution in its core is admittedly quite a straightforward solution. Patching third-party solutions should not be a complicated thing to do. We've tried to make this as easy as possible by giving you a centralized place to manage that. You'll see in the web interface in the demo that it's a very easy to use tool. It'll give you the ability to set things up so that those security updates are automated, and the application deployments are going to happen automated as well. So it's kind of a set it and forget it system where you can sleep well at night knowing that we're going to be constantly monitoring for those new versions and pushing them out to your environment. Speaking of pushing those out, the scheduling piece is a core aspect of getting new applications out. So there's quite a bit of functionality there to give you flexibility on how you want to manage your environment and your updates. And then we have a big focus here on making sure that we're supporting the applications that you need out of the box. So you'll see our library, and we'll share our catalog link within the documentation center of our website. That is a very big focus for us here at Recast as we go forward with this solution. All righty, let's jump into our demo environment here. Like I mentioned at the beginning, please, if you have questions as I'm going, put them in the chat. We'll try and address them there, or I'll try and bring them up as we're talking through things. We want to make sure that this session is as informational as possible for you so that you can understand what we're doing here and how this software platform works. Alrighty, so we are looking at our web interface. You'll notice this is a very straightforward view. Like I mentioned before, this is something that shouldn't be rocket science. We're going to give you all of the different ways to interact with your different deployment options here directly within the same web interface. You'll notice that we have not only connectors for InTune, but Config Manager and WSUS as well. The goal with this is to give you the flexibility for wherever you are within your journey going forward for endpoint management. If you're co-managed, if you're fully on-prem, but interested in moving to InTune in the future, maybe you have an environment that is managing servers as well as workstations, and you're deploying applications out in different ways to those different collections or different groups. We're going to give you the flexibility here to do that however you prefer. To start things off, we'll take a look at Config Manager. So you'll note here we're diving into the service applications list. This is going to be the primary place where you set which applications you want to deploy out into your environment. And this is going to be your first look here at our catalog. So you'll take a look at the list by my screen. We can share a link out as well in the follow-up. We are proud to announce that we have currently eclipsed the 250 mark for our application catalog, and that will continue to grow as time goes on. We put a lot of effort in on our teams to make sure that we're continuing to provide the applications that our customers need. And you'll note in the top right box here, we are still very much so interested in hearing from you if we're missing something, or if there are application groups that you're interested in seeing in the future. You can either submit them here or on our ideas page of our website. And I would highly recommend going in there and taking a look and either voting for some that don't exist today, or adding the ones if you don't see them already. So deploying an application is going to be a pretty simple process. On the right side here, you'll see a toggle for yes or no. If you would like to deploy this application out into Config Manager, we're going to toggle that to yes. And once that process starts, the tool will start looking out for those updates. Once we find them, we'll download them, we'll package them, and we'll deploy them out to Config Manager automatically. So if you come in here and you go through and configure things when you first implement the product, you should know in the back end that you don't need to come in and publish anything additional or manage these unless you want to make updates to the applications you're deploying. It will continue to go ahead and grab those and push them out, and you shouldn't need to do anything additional here to get those into your system. We'll jump over to Config Manager here and take a look at what those look like. So I'm here in my console. When I push through an application with the application manager for MECM connector. I'm going to get those in my console as applications. So there's some great benefits here. We'll configure this application manager folder for you automatically. And within here, we can see all of the different developers and then the applications that we're deploying. So for our small subset here, we're going to just take a peek at Chrome. We can see that we have 4 deployments out in the environment right now. 2 of them are active with current deployments. 1 is active in the process of retiring. And then we also have a fully retired version. What we're really looking at here is some of the efficiencies that the product provides. When we push these application versions through, and you'll see that there are more recent versions, they're going to take on the aspects that you've configured, but they're going to supersede the old versions as and phase those out as you set up the deployments to process. So again, you shouldn't need to do anything additional here. Once you configure things the first time, you'll be able to just sleep easy knowing that they'll continue deploying out to the environment. Let's grab one that has active deployments. So we'll grab this version here, and we can see that we have 2 active deployments out, and we can check on their compliance levels here as well. This is going to be where you can go in and manage all the different settings for this deployment. So whether that's a certain schedule or maybe some of the additional settings or user experience pieces of this is all config manager functionality. So if you're packaging deploying this, you might be familiar already. The nice thing is there's quite a bit here. It's very easy to manage. And once you go through this and configure it the first time, it'll take over from there, and you can just let it run, and those applications will push out to your environment. The old versions will retire automatically. So if you let this run, it will follow those rules. Those will retire. We do have some additional benefits here that I want to point out to you, especially for our right-click tool customers. Since these are pushing out as applications, I can actually go into my devices here, and I'll grab one of our demo boxes. And in right-click tools, under our client tools, we have the Remote Software Center. If I come in here, I have the ability to maybe be a little bit more heavy-handed with what I'm doing. Maybe a user is having some issues with a certain version, and I see that they haven't actually taken the newest one yet. I can come in and go ahead and maybe force an install or do an uninstall on that device. So we just get a little bit more added functionality within right-click tools because of this integration and the utilization of Application Manager. There's one more thing here that I want to mention before we jump back into the web interface, and that would be the option for using the WSUS module. If you did want to use that with Config Manager, you could, and that would actually show up here as a software update group. So you're going to lose a little bit of the functionality and flexibility of managing those applications individually. But if this is something you wanted to do for a smaller subset of workstations or maybe some servers, that's a part of the tool, and you could continue to do that with the application. No additional pieces needed there to add on or tack on. You know, that's just something you would have to configure when you go ahead and set things up. Alrighty. So there is one other section here that we haven't touched on, which is the InTune piece. Actually, there are 2. We'll touch on the custom applications in just a moment. InTune is something that we wanted to add some additional functionality. I don't know how many of you have gone down the path or how far you are on the path of moving to InTune, but there are certain features and functionality that are a little bit less accessible in that platform as it is today. And we wanted to give you the tools to be able to manage those things within our solution, so you weren't digging through the back end or maybe looking for something that isn't quite there yet today. We do have the ability to pull in and set up application groups directly in here. You you will have to have an existing empty Azure AD group, but this is functionality that you can configure directly within the application manager for InTune interface here. We also are going to offer you the ability to come in and manage the deployment processes. So this service applications list is going to be the same as it was for, or extremely similar to the one for Config Manager and WSUS, where we're going to configure which applications we want to deploy on the right here. But then we can take it a step further with this deployment processes, and we can actually go and set this up by deployment to configure which different applications we want to deploy. So we have a number of different deployment processes going out into our environment today. If I take a look at our global available applications here, you can see that I actually have the option to go ahead and deploy some of these and be a little bit more specific about which applications are going out to this deployment group. I'm also going to be able to take another level here and configure these deployments. So we currently have one deployment going out to all of our users, and that's that group coming in from InTune. If I wanted to add additional here, I certainly could. And then I can also edit and manage some of these settings for this deployment directly within Application Manager. This should be relatively intuitive, pretty similar to how InTune is looking at things and operating. So if you're familiar with that platform, this shouldn't be too foreign for you. You're going to get an option to set up install intent here. I had it as available before, but when I flip it to required, I'll get some additional options here, such as a deadline where I can configure the specific amount of time that I'm going to give that application to install. I also have the ability to manage toast notifications or hide them specifically, and set the optimization priority here if we want to set it to download in the background or in the foreground. If you would like certain emails along the process, you're definitely able to manage them here. Maybe you just want to see one if there's an error, you can set that up. And then also we're going to have access to the restart settings here to manage the grace period for that and give the end user a little bit more flexibility. The last section here for InTune is just going to be looking at the deployments that are actually going out, so the scheduled deployments. And here's where we can manage these. So say we have our deployment going out for an application into our test group, and we find that there's a certain integration that we've configured that isn't working as expected. We can go ahead and pause the later updates for the core group of users or the full environment. So we have some flexibility here to manage how those deployments are going out. And I think that's it as far as InTune is going to go. Again, not terribly complicated, but there is some additional functionality here for you to manage. Just trying to give you more tools and make it easy to use so that you don't have to dig through InTune or go ahead and look and try and manage those on that side of things. All right, there's one more section here that is a pretty fun piece. I enjoy talking about this quite a bit. Obviously, when you talk about third-party patching, one of the important pieces are the applications that we're trying to patch within your library. And while we're trying to address that and grow our catalog as much as possible, we understand that the reality is it's very unlikely that we're going to hit all of them. And also, we wanted to give some flexibility so that if there were applications that were developed internally or maybe extremely industry specific, you could use our tool to patch those within your environment and take advantage of some of the efficiencies, such as the deployments and the schedules being optimized and superseded when the new versions are put in the system. So we're taking a look here at the applications list. If I wanted to add a new one, it's pretty simple, just putting in some basic details here to get it in the system. Once it's in the system, I'll have the option to import a new version. And this is where I'll go in and I'll configure how I want to deploy this. So if I'm going out to SCCM or InTune, maybe I'm using a script installer or a Windows installer. And then once I fill in some of these details, I can generate commands and even configure a custom detection method if that's something that I would like to do. So again, just trying to give you a little bit more ability to manage your environment and give you all the flexibility for your environment within a single pane instead of having you jump between the different systems or continuing to manually package and deploy certain applications. All right. Well, if you stuck with me, I do appreciate it. There's a couple more pieces here that I want to chat about. But if you had any questions, please drop those in the chat as well. All right, so let's talk about next steps here with Recast. I am one of our account managers, so I fill into this role very heavily. I'm happy to work with you to work through any of these steps along the way. Typically, once we have one of these first calls and you identify that this could be something that's beneficial for your environment, we would gather a couple of your colleagues to verify that and just expand the exposure of the tool, make sure that it's going to be beneficial for multiple people or in multiple areas of the business. And then we're able to go ahead and talk about getting that added. I'm happy to provide quotes once we do those one-off calls and get a couple questions answered so that you can start the process of getting your budgets approved. I'm also more than happy to help out with any sort of internal conversations there to get those approvals and talk through some of the additional steps that will be required to add new software or get us as a vendor in your system. Once we've gone through that process, after that, it's pretty straightforward. We have a great onboarding team here that would introduce you, I would introduce you to when they can help you get things going. There's no additional service fee to go alongside the software here. So we just want to work with you and make sure that you are successful with the product. And realistically, we do see most of our customers up and running within a couple hours. So it's not a complicated process. It's not something that you're going to have to spend multiple days on to get going. You can just work with us and know that we're going to be able to get you going really quickly and start the process to improving your environment. All righty. We do have a poll question here, so I'd love to hear from you here within the poll. Basically, what you've seen today is just a taste of the patch management solution and how we're approaching this. If you'd be interested in having a further conversation with us or maybe talk some of the specifics about your environment, we'd be happy to do that with you. So please take a second here to answer this and let us know how you're feeling about that. All righty, looks like we've got a couple people who have answered already. I'll give you just a moment more here. I'll start talking through a couple of additional pieces here. So just when it comes to 0-day patches, obviously it's important to get these out as quickly as possible. I think back to Thanksgiving last year when we had a Chrome 0-day patch. Part of the process and the benefit that Application Manager brings to your environment is automating that. So not only are we looking out there for you so you don't have to be online in case something happens on one of those off days, but also that process is going to kick off automatically. We typically see those updates going out within 24 to 48 hours. And in practice, it tends to be a little bit less than that as well. So you can just let it run and know that those are going to happen, especially those important 0-day patches. We do have a process on our back end to verify the patches before they go out. So know that we're working all the time to make sure that everything's going to be good to go and those applications aren't just going to be pushed to you. We're doing some vetting on our side as well. As far as the application process, or sorry, the process to get an application added to our environment, I would say it's going to depend on the level of interest from the community. So that's where I would highly recommend, if you have interest in an additional piece of software that we don't have in our catalog today, please add it to our list with the ideas page on our website, or go ahead and go on and vote for somebody that's already submitted it. That's how we are able to understand who's interested in what, and it's certainly a first place where our teams are looking to see how we can move forward and what we can add to our environment to most benefit our customers. And finally, one last thing here, just talking about some of the additional insights that you can get access to. So when these are coming through as applications into Config Manager, you're going to be able to access a lot of information about the deployments and just get a better understanding of where those updates are at within Config Manager. The same is going to go for InTune. So as we're deploying the applications over there, you're going to be able to drill into those deployments and see the different information as far as certain levels of compliance or updates and where certain devices are. So in the innate ability for us to just push those through as applications, you're also going to see some benefits there with the different data within InTune and Config Manager. All right. Well, I think that is it. Oh, I do see one more question. The application list URL, so that is on the documentation center of our website, but you can also find that in the On24 platform up on the top right in the additional information section there. There should be a direct link. We will also be sending out some follow-up emails from this, where I know we have that included as well. And if you aren't getting it either of those places, you can navigate directly to our website, recastsoftware.com, and then through our resources tab from the documentation center for Application Manager, that will get you right to all the documentation. So, alrighty, well, I think that's everything I had. I do appreciate everybody's time, and I hope this has been a beneficial session for you. If you have more questions after the fact or think of things, please let us know. We'd be happy to get those answered for you, or hop on an additional call if yourself or anybody else would like to continue this conversation further. All right. Thank you, everybody.